Everyone, and welcome to an HVR portal webinar for the release 10.6, coming live for you on the 16th of March. So today we're gonna start from some welcome and housekeeping, and then we're gonna run you through the new features that are part of this release, announce the date for the next release, and then provide you with some contact details should you need any further assistance. I'd like to introduce the panel members for today. Vish Sharma is Automation Tester in HVR Solutions, Sean Tinsley, Product Analyst in HVR Solutions, and John Berry, Digital Product Manager in HVR Solutions. The format for today's webinar are slides and some feature demonstrations. And if you do have any questions, there will be contact details provided to you at the end of this webinar where you could reach out should you need any further assistance. So without further ado, let's go through what's been released for this release. And I'm going to hand over to Vish now to run us through the updates in the PBS space.
Thanks, Tanya. Good afternoon, everybody. I will be talking about features we are releasing for PBS design approval form. First feature we are enabling is for the vehicle mass calculations. Now we take into account for compliance and eligibilities. Next slide, please. As in this example, for the bus, different type of buses, now you can select eligible 3-axle or compliant buses, and system would take that into account when it calculate the MDL prescribed masses for different axles. We have also introduced checks for B-double XY rule. XY rule, a system checks for that there is the tri axles, which is like the last axle of the first trailer, and the distance between that and the first triaxle of the second trailer complies with XY rule. If a vehicle configuration fails that rule, we will not allow that application to be submitted for tier 1 assessments, but for tier 2 and tier 3 bridge assessments, these applications will be allowed. So this is to upfront enable the applications to be submitted for the correct configuration. Next slide, please. For the customer view, we have added the customer provider name in the customer view. This will enable customers to easily find out who are the provider for their application. In case they have to contact the provider for further information. On the DA submission confirmation text, we have changed it to be bit more explicit to for the applicants to make sure that they confirm that the application they are submitted is complete and accurate. This is also a step to make sure the correct application is filled up so that it speed up the process of applications further down the line. We have also enhanced the user interface to allow customers to clear data in multiple rows of the table. This will help them if they want to clear data in multiple rows of a table instead of individually deleting rows one by one. Next round of enhancements we have done is in terms of auto-generated Part A and Part B documents. Now the body type for trailer and the technical assessment field and direction stability under braking and support for pulling GCM, GVM, and ATM values for a vehicle are all these fields are also being auto-populated into the generated documents. Next slide, please. We have also added vehicle configuration for trailers with the rear trailer with the rear axle group of trailers can have now 2 axle groups. In this diagram, the highlighted ones are we have 2-1 configuration for in a B double, and then in a semi trailer we have got 1-2 configuration highlighted. Next slide, please.
I think this is the last really update we've got in the PBS space. Vish, are you going to demo us some of these changes?
I will hand over to Sean for his presentation now.
Thanks, Vish. Thanks, Tanya. So what I'm going to go through today is I've got a couple of new enhancements for Road Manager Access relating to the portal and portal decisions. The first one we're going to go through today is the road segment refusal processing support. So I'm just quickly share my screen, give you a rough demo through the system. Okay. As you can see here at the moment, what I've got is a new permit application. But what we'll do is we'll discuss this one first and we'll talk through how the first lot of enhancements when it comes to the road segment refusal requirement for particularly conditions, decisions with approval with conditions for WASET applications. On a number of occasions, you'll find that there are road manager decisions where an approval with conditions may have roads that are refused or are unsuitable for the heavy vehicle access. And on these certain occasions, a road manager may choose to approve with conditions by refusing these roads rather than rejecting the case in its entirety. So for this particular section of the demo that I'm providing here is we've got a lovely number set of roads here under a WASET application, and we now have the option that when we approve with conditions, we also have the ability to refuse certain road segments. Now, what this does is, while it has been a previous function that allows this to happen, it actually prompts the road manager to provide refusal reasonings for these certain road manager segments in accordance with the heavy vehicle national law. So as we go through and select our road segments, in this case, it's a piece of infrastructure. We're going to update the road, select it as refused, indicate the reasoning behind, and in this occasion, I'm going to use road infrastructure. Now, if I try and submit this, it will prompt to supply a decision or some further statement of reasons in support of the refusal decision. What this does is, once we actually physically provide the information about the asset, so on this one, I'm going to say that it is a weight limited structure. And we provide the return decision. It pauses the automated process as part of the Permanent Assistant program. So when returning back to the regulator review, we'll see that we have, once the system's loaded, a response received under review. So in instances where there is one or more decisions, a task will be created by the system automatically to pause the automated process should the system be set up for an assisted permit issue. But what this does is it allows the operator time to consider the removal of certain roads as part of the rejected section and then consider their ability to essentially accept the alternate route if one is provided as part of the road manager decision and the regulator performing that function, or able to then pass the information back onto the road manager to advise that we would rather receive a refusal. Now, moving on to my next particular demonstration here is the requirement for performance-based standards applications to attach a PBS attachment as part of it. What we've noticed is during the past, or over the past few years, that from time to time, operators may inadvertently forget to attach some valid PBS information materials that particularly relate to the assessment evaluation process for the regulator and the road manager. So what we've done is we've developed a prompt tool that will essentially allow you to step through the application process per normality, but it will not allow you to submit the application in its entirety until you have provided a valid attachment. So what happens here is that if you try and pass the system through, and I'll just quickly confirm the dates here because it will have changed. If you try and pass your application through the system without an attachment, particularly for a PBS DA or VA, it will actually ask you that at least one PBS attachment is required. Now, this is required for any application that is involving a PBS DA or VA application. It does not particularly ask you for a PBS VA, as we do know that there are some legacy final approvals that were issued by the NTC prior to the NHVR's inception. So this is just a prompting tool to help support the process in order to help streamline your access request and road manager evaluation. Thanks very much, Tanya.
Thanks, Sean, for your updates. I'm going to hand over now to John to announce some security updates and also take us through the roadmap.
Great, thanks for Sean and Tanya. Good, putting up the slides. The first point I wanted to go through was the security updates. So we had some feedback from one of our heavy vehicle operators, and it's a bit of feedback that introduced a concern around how users of accounts could potentially be having access to accounts without the account administrators or organisational directors understanding that they have that access. And so the issue that was brought up to us was that a number of users, once they potentially move on to a different organisation, different trucking firm, they can change their email address. And when they do that, they don't actually lose access to the accounts with their previous employer or that the memberships they had for those accounts. And a lot of particularly administrators that have a number of users on their account had an expectation that they could block the access to the company's email account and they'd lose the access to the account in the portal. By being able to change the email address, that essentially meant that that users could continue to access their portal account and the accounts that they had previously been with. So what we're doing from today's release is any changes to an email address will result in the deactivation of that user on all accounts which they're a member of. Now that will only happen if they're not the sole administrator of the account. So for those that have only got themselves set up on the account and they decide to change their email address for any reason, that won't affect those type of users. This is really the case where we have users that have associations with a lot of different potentially company accounts. We just want to make sure that the email address can be used as a tool by particularly company email accounts to help control security. So what will happen on the email address being changed, not only will the deactivation kick in on all those accounts, but the account administrators primary contact on each of the accounts will get an email notifying that the change has been made. They've got the option to go back in and reactivate that member if it is an email address change that they're happy with, or not. So we're hoping that this will plug that security hole and also provide a bit more confidence for those account administrators that they can use their corporate or company email addresses as a mechanism for managing the security of their users. Finally, it's been several months now since we've both had a webinar and gone through what the portal roadmap is looking like. So what we've been focusing on is a number of different initiatives that really get to the heart of some of the problems we've had with routing in particular. So our spatial program is really been focused on what we're calling the next generation route planner. The next generation route planner is currently in pilot and we have over 100 users now that are actively putting through access permit applications using the next generation route planner. We're aiming to, over the next 4 weeks, to start really launching this out to a broader base and ultimately have everyone getting access to this next generation route planner to submit routes. You will see some communications coming out from the digital team and from our access manager here at the NHVR about what we're doing in this space. It is a really important improvement that we're already seeing some really great feedback from our industry pilot group members, and it really sets the foundation for how we can really transform the way we deliver maps. And ultimately what we're aiming to do over the next 6 to 9 months is get to the fruition of the vision in terms of having one single national map that you can go to as the source of truth for all the legally enforceable networks. So all the network maps associated with the notices that are currently published in various locations, usually through state transport agencies, New South Wales, South Australia, Victoria, Queensland. And bringing that together into one place will obviously provide that integrated experience within the portal. But we've also been making a number of improvements just to make the use of the route planner easier. And one of those will be the ability for routes to snap to network and a whole bunch of features that will really make the route planning experience oriented towards heavy vehicles and not currently how it is, which is around light vehicles. So a really exciting piece of work coming up. What the spatial program will enable us to do is start looking at pre-approvals. And so in our access transformation initiative, we're really looking to streamline the way that pre-approvals are used. Road managers would be aware of how pre-approvals are an important tool for enabling the reduction in the workload and greater efficiency in getting those routes that they're happy for pre-approval to be given to operators in the most speediest time we can do it. What that involves for our access team is a bit of work to use those pre-approvals, and we really want to remove that that overhead for them so that we can get those pre-approvals and those routes that have pre-approvals out and essentially automatically approved without even the access team having to touch them. So the automatic identification of pre-approvals will help us to do that and really speed up that process. And then we move on to our notices and pre-approvals consultation initiative, where we're really going to be providing, based on the spatial program, the ability for road managers to really manage those networks in a self-service fashion, which means that rather than potentially weeks for changes to flow through and the communications about those changes, we can enable changes within days and hours. So that will really help transform how those networks that we deliver through that single national network map solution can be managed ongoing. And so we'll be hearing a lot more about that piece of work as well. At the bottom there, the SLAGAP initiative, so that's the Strategic Local Government Asset Assessment Program. That program, again, very much focused on tools we can supply to road managers, in particular local government, where through the Commonwealth we've received funding to provide asset assessments for those critical pieces of infrastructure. Now, what that's going to help us do is improve our understanding of those assets, and through some automated asset assessment solutions that we're developing here at the NHVR, we'll be able to use that information to assist local governments in particular understand how to open up access to those structures. Combining that with pre-approvals and notices, we're starting to open up, hopefully, the use of automated tools to make the decision making not just faster but much more consistent, and ultimately opening up access is our goal. And then finally, with the PBS initiative, so we saw a bit of that with Vish today. Design approval smart form is getting to a state now where it's automating a number of the steps in that process that currently our PBS team undertake in terms of checking. We will be looking to release that to all PBS assessors and start encouraging that use. It is available now, and the improvements that you've seen today will be going out. We will be setting a date shortly for those PBS assessors about when we're going to move towards enforcing the use of that smart form. One of the things we're focused on, particularly at the moment, is the other side of that, so the vehicle approvals. So Sean showed us today some immediate improvements we're making to try and get that what is essentially a PDF document attached to access PBS applications. With the work we're doing in the PBS initiative, we really want to, again, transform that into a completely seamless experience so that heavy vehicle operators are not having to attach them at all. Simply by having their digital vehicle approvals associated with their account, those will be automatically applied. So still a bit of work to do there. So we're moving into the vehicle approvals digitizations side of things, and that will help us to get an end-to-end view of essentially a PBS from design approvals through to vehicle approvals, and we'll be doing that in the next quarter, the next 3 months. Beyond that is when we'll really start to see the integration of that initiative with heavy vehicle access and the improvements we'll be able to make for operators in terms of submitting PBS applications, but ultimately, again, for road managers in terms of being able to provide that information in a format that will help them make those decisions a lot more quickly. So a lot coming up over the next 3 to 6 to 9 months this calendar year, and the next major piece you'll see coming from us will be around that next generation route planner. So looking forward to that. That's it from me. I'll hand back to Tanya and we'll wrap it up.
Great. Well, thank you, John. Certainly a lot of exciting things are coming up in the portal. So in terms of our next release, we will be releasing that on 20th of April. If you do have questions, there is a help center which is available 24/7 with all the help articles, FAQs, the webinars, and online training. We have special dedicated support for customers and for the road managers with the details that you're seeing on the screen right now. So feel free to reach out for any assistance you might need. And thanks for watching us today.